in every rak'ah of every salat for his whole life. So it's definitely important for him to hear reminders about what is the meaning of that surah that he recites so much. So perhaps you may have heard someone remind you about the meanings of Al-Fatiha recently, yet it's definitely beneficial to hear a reminder, and it's definitely beneficial to keep those meanings coming, especially when some of us are not Arabs, and it's a difficulty for us to keep the meanings of even Surah Al-Fatiha in mind when we're reciting it. So we ask Allah Ta'ala to allow us to have hearts that constantly remember Him, especially when reading the very best of His book, Surah Al-Fatiha. So Allah Ta'ala begins the surah with the Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah. In the name of Allah, meaning Bismillahi, or Bismillahi aqra'u kitab Allah. In the name of Allah, I read. In the name of Allah, there's an action that must be connected to this prepositional phrase. In the name of Allah, what? Like when you begin to eat, you say Bismillahi akulu. In the name of Allah, I eat. And when you say the Bismillah before you drink, Bismillahi ashrab, and so on. So here you're reading the book of Allah. So you say Bismillahi, and you have the understanding, Bismillahi aqra, I'm reading in the name of Allah. Who is Allah? As Allah Ta'ala describes Himself with many descriptions here. Ar-Rahman, He is Ar-Rahman, and He is Ar-Rahim. Two names that are connected to the meaning of Rahmah, of mercy. Allah Ta'ala has mentioned these two names throughout the Quran and in the Basmala. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahman, some of the scholars have mentioned the possessor of mercy, that mercy which is not connected to those whom He favors, but that mercy which is comprehensive and reaches even those who disbelieve in Him and even those who reject Him. That even the disbeliever who does not worship Allah and rejects the concept of worshiping Allah, he's a recipient of this mercy. He only lives and he only breathes and he only eats because of the mercy of Allah Ta'ala. And the scholars differentiate between these two names and the mercy intended in these two names based on some of the verses of the book of Allah, like the statement of Allah, وَكَانَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَحِيمًا, and Allah is, as it relates to the believers, kind of specifically indicated in that passage, He's Rahim, meaning a possessor of mercy, meaning there is a kind of mercy that Allah Ta'ala has, the everlasting mercy, that which is only bestowed upon those whom He loves and those whom He has accepted their acts of worship, and those whom He chooses to reward in His paradise. And may Allah Ta'ala make us from those who receive that mercy. Allahumma ameen. So He is the one whose mercy is unlimited in this life, extending to all creatures, and the one whose mercy in the hereafter is unlimitedly extended to those who deserve it, those who have worshipped Him, those who have recognized their purpose in life. So Allah Ta'ala is the possessor of mercy. Then the first, or the verse, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, all praise is due to Allah, Yarhamukallah. All praise is due to Allah. Alhamdu, the word alhamd means praise in English. Praise, not just praise, but every type of statement, every type of beautiful word, every type of praise based on goodness, based on purity, based on these ideas of perfection that anyone could receive. All of that is due to Allah. Alhamdulillahi. It is the right of Allah to be praised with that. It is His right exclusively. And we praise some people within the creation. Some people say, no, there's no hamd. Al-hamd is specific to Allah. Then what does the name Muhammad mean? What does the name Mahmud mean? What are these permissible names? They mean the one who is praised, the one who is praiseworthy. So praise is allowed to be directed to other than Allah. Yet alhamdu, jami' anwa' al-mahamid, every single type of praise is deserving to Allah. And He has the right to be praised by that. So we're saying Alhamdulillah, every single type of praise that can be uttered is due to Allah Ta'ala, is the right of Allah. Rabb al-Alameen. And He is the Rabb, He is the Creator, He's the Nourisher, He's the bringer of life and death, and He is the one who is in absolute control of al-Alameen. And the word Alameen is a plural of the word Alam, and an Alam is something that exists, something that is found in existence. And I am an Alam, and you are an Alam, and the sun is an Alam, and the moon is an Alam. Every single thing that is created is an Alam. So every living soul, every created thing, everything in existence, Allah Ta'ala is the Lord of all of that. So we see here the mulk of Allah Ta'ala, that He is the Creator, He is the maintainer, He is the controller of affairs, the disposer of affairs, the bringer of life, and the one who causes death for every one of the Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the names of Allah Ta'ala, again, He is the merciful one. So those Alameen are in two categories. There are some of them, they worship Allah, amongst the jinn and mankind. There are those who worship Allah alone with Tawheed, and there are those who do not. Those who do not, they receive the mercy indicated in the name Ar-Rahman. And those who do, they receive the mercy indicated in the name Ar-Rahman and the mercy indicated in the name Ar-Rahim, that mercy which is exclusive to the believers in the hereafter, that the non-Muslims do not share. And then when we hear Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, there is hope, right? There is hope. And then your hope swings into fear when you read the next verse. Allah is Maliki Yawmiddin. You are reminded about that day of Deen. The day of Deen. The day of Deen here is the day of recompense, when all of the accounts are settled, right? Yawma la tamliku nafsun li nafsin shay'a. A day when no soul will own anything for any other soul. No matter how much you love your children or your brother or your best friend or your parents, you own nothing for them on this day. The Prophet ﷺ was afraid of this day for his closest family members, and he would call them out from Mount Safa. He would call them out by name, and he would call them out and say to them, "La amliku lakum min Allahi shay'a." I own nothing. I can't do anything for you with Allah. From the very beginning of his message, he called them to this understanding, to recognize that a day is coming where your lineage means nothing to you, where your connections mean nothing to you, and the only thing that is of any value and worth is your connection to Allah Ta'ala and what you have put forth between yourself and Allah Ta'ala. So why do I say in description of Yawmuddin, I say Yawma la tamliku nafsun li nafsin shay'a wal amru Yawma idhin lillah, right? And the day, the affair on that day is solely for Allah Ta'ala, because that's how Allah described Yawmuddin in the other surah, وَمَا أَدَرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الدِّينِ, right? And what will make you know what the day of deen is, the day of recompense. It's the day when nobody owns anything. The mulk, there is no mulk for anyone. La tamliku nafsun, no mulk, except for Allah Ta'ala. He's Maliki Yawmiddin. He is the owner of the dominion. He is the owner, the possessor by right of everything on that day. Then, because a person is extremely fearful, after mentioning the day of judgment and realizing that with the mention of Yawmuddin, he should have his sins in mind. He should have what he has put forth in mind. He should have his need to repent to Allah in mind. He should have his need to worship Allah and to gain the forgiveness of Allah Ta'ala in mind. So he says, Iyyaka na'bud, right? He directs his worship to Allah Ta'ala. He doesn't say, Na'buduka wa nasta'inuka, like he says in Surah, in Khutbat al-Hajjah. But here, Iyyaka na'budu. This Iyyaka, when you put the Iyyaka in the front, as opposed to just saying Na'buduka, the Iyyaka makes it exclusive and puts the focus and the attention to the Ma'bud. Iyyaka na'budu. You alone, you restrictedly, exclusively, you alone are the one that we worship. Iyyaka na'budu, from ibadah, wa iyyaka nasta'in. Because to set oneself to Allah Ta'ala with his life of worship, to set his whole life to Allah Ta'ala with acts of worship day and night, that is no easy matter for any person to accomplish. Because of that, he says, Iyyaka na'bud, and then, wa iyyaka nasta'in. There is an important connection there. If I'm going to set myself towards the worship of Allah, and if I'm going to continue upon that worship until I die, however long my life may be, that is no easy affair. And I cannot do that because I want to, because I wish to, because I have physical strength, or because I have been blessed with some guidance. I would only be able to do that if Allah Ta'ala extends His assistance to me. And so therefore, I must seek the assistance of Allah Ta'ala. So, إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And you alone do I seek, or do we seek for assistance. And the Prophet ﷺ used to teach the importance of isti'ana, of seeking help from Allah Ta'ala. Often, he used to tell them in his khutbat al-hajjah, as we've connected already more than once to khutbat al-hajjah, he would say, Inna alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu. Right? We praise Him and nasta'inuhu, and we seek His assistance. You can say in Arabic, as a benefit in Arabic, you can say nasta'inuka and nasta'inu bika. You can say nasta'inuka directly using Allah as a maf'ul, and you can say nasta'inu bika using the ba. Why? We have in Surah Al-Fatiha, Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'in. And we have in the hadith of Abdullah bin Abbas, إِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. Right, so you can say, أَسْتَعِينُ اللَّهِ وَأَسْتَعِينُ بِاللَّهِ. Both are acceptable. I seek the assistance of Allah, and the same meaning for the other one, أَسْتَعِينُ بِاللَّهِ. I seek assistance through Allah Ta'ala. طيب. Al-isti'ana is an incredible, all-inclusive type of worship that a servant comes with. He says, or he not only says it, but he lives it, that he seeks the assistance of Allah Ta'ala. And from that is his tawheed. And from the perfection of a man's tawheed, in Kitab al-Tawheed, there's this great chapter called Babu Tahqiq al-Tawheed, to actualize tawheed and to complete it and to perfect it. And what is it from that long hadith mentioning 4 things, right? About 70,000 people that enter paradise. They have no hisab, they have no adhab. Who are they? They are the people who, what? La yatatayyarun. They don't believe in omens. What else? Wala yaktawun. They don't use cauterization. They don't brand themselves with a hot iron as a medical treatment. Wala yastarqun. And they don't seek a ruqya. They don't ask for a ruqya. وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. And they place their trust solely in their Lord. Now, the point here is, they don't seek the ruqya from someone else. The scholars of Islam say the ruqya is permissible. To ask, to have someone read Qur'an on you, or to read Qur'an on yourself, or to make adhkar and ask Allah Ta'ala for healing. This is a manifestation of your tawheed. So then, what's the problem here? Or what is the reason that there's a virtue for some people who go to paradise directly, no punishment, no accountability, because they left off this istirqa. Istirqa is talab al-ruqya min al-ghayr. It's to ask someone else to perform that ruqya on you, to read Qur'an or to make dua for you with a ruqya. The point is, as the scholars have explained, it is a su'al, it is a talab, it is asking someone else. And from the ways in general to paradise that the Prophet ﷺ guided us to, and it has to do with the perfection of our tawheed, is not asking the people for anything, even for permissible things. And the Sahaba used to be dedicated to this. Some of them would be getting ready to go on a journey, and they would get up on the camel. The camel getting up off the ground is quite a process, the legs getting in their place and all of that. They would have all of their things with them on the way for the journey, and then one small thing, an iqal or something, would drop down on the ground. And they would have their companion with them on the ground, and they would not ask him to hand that up to him. They would not say, hand me my iqal, or hand me that thing, my rope, or hand me the thing that had fallen down. Rather, they would bring the camel back down themselves, and they would reach down and they would get the item. Why? Because they didn't want to ask anyone else for anything. So quickly people turn to others and ask. While these matters, it's permissible, al-isti'anatu bighayrillahi, جائزة بشروط, right? That to ask other than Allah for things is permissible with conditions. What are those conditions? That you ask things from other than Allah. You ask for things that are permissible to be sought from those people. You ask for assistance in a permissible matter. You ask for personal help in a matter that they can fulfill and they can help you with. You ask for assistance in something that is not exclusive to Allah Ta'ala. You cannot ask your brother to forgive you and put you in paradise or save you from the hellfire, but you can ask your brother to come to your house and help you move boxes or something like this, right? So long as this person is hayyun, hadir, qadir, he is alive, he is present, and he is capable of fulfilling what you ask. So you are allowed to, but while you are allowed to, while it is permissible, there is a virtue beyond basic permissibility. There is a virtue for the people who wish to come with the highest level of tawheed, the worship of Allah Ta'ala, actualizing it to its maximum, meaning not allowing anything besides Allah Ta'ala. There are people who what? Who only ask Allah Ta'ala, and when it comes to seeking assistance from other people, they seek the assistance from Allah Ta'ala, and they don't ask others for things, even when it's permissible. That shows what? Absolute reliance upon Allah Ta'ala in all affairs. So, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. You alone do we worship, and you alone do we seek for assistance. Specifically related to that dedication of my life is to Allah Ta'ala as a worshipper. Jazakallahu khairan. My life is to Allah as a worshipper. It is no easy task, so therefore He is the one who I seek for assistance. Then the worshipper says, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us to the straight path. Guide us here is a very, very basic translation for this very powerful passage. You're asking for hidayah to the straight path. I'll pose a question here. The straight path, as-sirat al-mustaqim, the straight path. In brevity, what do you think it is? Give me some answers here. Anyone have an idea over here? The Sunnah. Very good. Some of the scholars of Tafsir said as-sirat al-mustaqim is the Sunnah. Tayyib. What about the Quran? Naam. Someone says naam, of course. As-sirat al-mustaqim is the Quran. Now, do we have a clash and we have to figure out which one is correct? No. Some of the scholars of Tafsir said that the sirat al-mustaqim is the path of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. Now we have three. We have the Quran, we have the Sunnah, we have the path of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Some of the scholars, they said it's the path of al-ilm al-nafi' and al-amal al-salih. It's the path of beneficial knowledge and righteous actions. Now we have a fourth statement. Is there a clash here and we have to pick which one is correct? All of these are descriptions of what? The religion of Allah Ta'ala, the religion of Islam in totality. As-sirat al-mustaqim. Some of them said it's the path that doesn't have any iwaj. It's the path that doesn't have any bending or crookedness to it. All of these statements are people expressing the religion of Islam from different terms. The religion of Islam is the Sunnah. The religion of Islam is the Quran. The religion of Islam, it is the way of the Khulafa. It is the straight path that doesn't have any crookedness. All of that is correct. It is the straight path. So then we're asking for quote-unquote guidance. We're asking for hidayah to as-sirat al-mustaqim. What are we doing praying Salat al-Fajr? When we read this verse and we say, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Are we upon as-sirat al-mustaqim making Salat al-Fajr? Absolutely we are upon. This is the religion of Allah. This is what Allah has legislated. We are upon as-sirat al-mustaqim. I hope there is no one here except he understands he is upon as-sirat al-mustaqim with his practice of Islam. Right? In a general way. He is upon the deen of Islam. He is upon as-sirat al-mustaqim. So then what are we asking for? If we're saying here we are already worshipping you, now guide us to as-sirat al-mustaqim. Is it something else? What is it besides this? There's the word to keep us firm. Tayyib. Now, so the scholars mention that guidance, some of them, they say sometimes al-hidayah is 2 types. Sometimes they say al-hidayah is 3 types. Pay attention because it's going to come into your understanding of when you read this verse. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. What are you really asking for? Hidayah can be hidayah to ta'aleem, that someone teaches you something. That's called guidance. What's on the tongues of the people sometimes when they say, they try to be muhaqqiqeen and they say only Allah guides. We don't guide anyone. And this is falsehood. If the word guidance is understood properly, we guide people by the permission of Allah Ta'ala. We teach them, we instruct them, we show them what's correct. وَإِنَّكَ لَتَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. And verily you, O Muhammad, you guide to a path which is straight. So Allah has affirmed for His messenger hidayah. And we call this hidayat at-ta'lim wal-irshad, the guidance of teaching and showing the way, the guidance of instruction. طيب. In essence, we're not excluding this from what we ask Allah. We're asking for this. We're asking from Allah for those who would teach us and those who would come to us and instruct us in our religion. We're asking for an increase in teachings and knowledge of Islam. When we say ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, no reason to exclude it. However, there's something more important. Hidayah is also the qabul al-haq, the hidayah of the qulub, to be guided to accepting the truth. Right? Now, this is where it gets really important, that the guidance to accepting the truth, which is exclusively to Allah Ta'ala, is definitely something we're asking for, but that's not all as well. Because we could, imagine this, we could receive the hidayah of ta'aleem. We could have people teaching us accurate teachings in Islam. We could have, and we understand and we thank Allah Ta'ala for this, that we have already received hidayat al-tawfiq. That means I have accepted Islam. I have submitted to the religion of Islam. Here I am in a masjid worshipping Allah Ta'ala. That means I have been blessed with hidayat al-tawfiq. But yet with these two matters in place, I may go to the hellfire forever. It's serious. It's in front of me. Something is missing. There's a hidayah missing here. If I don't have it, if Allah doesn't give it to me, I can be in the hellfire forever with the first two hidayah, with the first two kinds of guidance in place. And I am a recipient of the first two. What's that hidayah? It's the hidayah of a-thabat, right? The hidayah of stability. For how many people have been blessed by Allah to have someone teach them proper teachings? And how many people from there have accepted those teachings and embraced them and implemented them? Yet, how many people from those die upon that? And they meet Allah Ta'ala after worshipping Him without committing any act of shirk, without falling into apostasy, without rejecting that, remaining stable upon that all the way until the end. That's what takes you into the hereafter upon Tawheed. That's the hidayah that matters, the third kind. So make sure that when you are reciting Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, you have in your mind that you are begging Allah Ta'ala for this hidayah to thabat, the guidance of stability. Lest if you're just asking Allah for the guidance of teaching, then you've already been blessed with that. If you're just asking Allah for the guidance of accepting the truth, you've accepted the truth. What's most important here is that you are given the guidance from Allah that only He gives, that is stability upon the truth all the way to a person's death, right? And then Allah Ta'ala reminds us about the two paths of negligence and heedlessness. And He reminds us of that straight path. What is the straight path? Sirat al-ladina an'amta alayhim. The path of those that you have bestowed your grace upon. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ. Not the path of those who have earned your anger, those who have anger upon them. وَلَا الضَّالِينَ. Nor the path of those who have gone astray. The scholars have mentioned that the path of those who have anger upon them, it is the path of the Jews and those who resemble the Jews in the concept of having knowledge but not practicing it. Having knowledge but not practicing it. And the path of the Daleen, the path of those who are astray, is the path of the Christians and those who resemble them in acting without knowledge. Where's our balance? Our balance is in that straight path, that it is the practice, or it is the path of what? Al-ilm wal-amal. It is the path of having proper, upright, authentic knowledge and practice with sincerity and mutaba'ah and following what is found in that knowledge. If we gain knowledge of Allah Ta'ala, knowledge of His paradise, knowledge of His punishment, knowledge of the ways to achieve or knowledge of the ways to gain Allah's mercy and to avoid His anger, and then we don't put that into practice, then we resemble the Jews in having knowledge without practice. And if we perform acts of innovation, worshipping Allah Ta'ala without foundations in the actions and the precedents of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then we resemble the Christians in how they are dedicated and how they worship and worship and worship, yet they have no knowledge, they have no foundation of knowledge upon which they build that worship. They just simply worship upon ignorance. Naam, your hand, Akhi, is up. Yeah, I read it and I just gave a brief explanation of it. The path of those whom you have bestowed your grace. Naam. So we ask Allah Ta'ala for this hidayah. We ask Allah Ta'ala for this hidayah to the path of those who receive His grace, those who are not upon the path of those who have knowledge and do not implement it. And we ask Allah Ta'ala for refuge as well from the paths of people who act without knowledge. And with this, it's sufficient, inshaAllah ta'ala, as a brief reminder for what we recite all of the time in Surah Al-Fatiha. It's, inshaAllah, some beneficial words that you've heard this morning that may help you in your recitation of Al-Fatiha. As a reminder, don't let it become habitual. Don't let it become just a recitation or just a habit that comes off of your tongue, or that you recite without reflecting, but rather reflect and interact with the Quran, as our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the way of his worship, to think deeply and to think carefully about the ayat that are being recited, as he would often in his salat and outside of his salat when he recited the Quran. When there were verses about paradise, verses about the mercy of Allah, he would ask Allah. And then if there were verses about punishment, verses about the hellfire, he would seek refuge with Allah from that result, from those things. So he was heavily engaged in his recitation of the Quran, contemplation. Let us be people who follow that way, and may Allah Ta'ala give us success in that. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.